Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And today we have a bit of a shorter Monday mini for you, a revisit on boundaries and guilt and women, which I think is timely because we are going into a holiday weekend, which for us, or I'll speak for myself, for me, is often difficult to maintain boundaries around. But I'm trying really hard this time. I'm trying very, very hard. Do you have any plans for the holiday weekend, Samantha?
No. My answer is always no. I'm probably going to be doing some K-drama watching. I'll be working. See, this is where I don't have boundaries because I just work whenever. But I will be doing some research about K-pop, which is our upcoming episode. We'll be doing that pretty soon, releasing that pretty soon. And there's a lot of things happening in the K-pop world. So, I'm trying to be all cool and trendy and keeping up with the latest. I'm cool, Anney.
I know you are. I know. That's what I always say. Samantha is my cool friend.
That was insulting. Okay.
No. No. I you know me. I'm going to be reading and writing fan fiction. Yeah. I do have to clean.
Yeah.
I have a lot of things I put off cleaning wise that
I sent you some homework. So while you're cleaning, you could actually be doing your homework.
It's true, but I have to, as I talked about in a recent happy hour, I believe, I have to snake my drain, and I think it's just going to be so miserable. So I don't know that I want to associate that with any of the homework that you sent me.
That's fair. That's fair.
But yes. I mean, there's plenty of time.
Sure.
To do these things. But I've been thinking about boundaries lately, and we've talked about it before several times on here, and my struggle with them. And it was there was a lot of catalyst for me wanting to talk about this again. And one was, I think about a month ago, you told me you felt some guilt because you had a friend ask you, hey, can we hang out soon? And you said, try middle of June.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely had this moment because we are really busy right now. And May is filled with so many things, whether I have a lot of people's birthdays in May, as well as we have events like graduation and all these things and family get-togethers. And then on top of that, yes, we have an audiobook coming that we have to record, and we have to take a full week out. And when we take time off, and we're not really taking time off, this is still work, we have to plan ahead. And because we release a new episode almost every day, at least 5 days a week, that's so much planning to do, because that doesn't include us actually researching. And as you know, when we research, and we've talked about how much information that we get and how long it really takes, it's a lot of stuff. So a person who I haven't seen, I think, in years, I want to say maybe pre-COVID, sent a message and was like, we'd love to catch up, want to talk to you. It already the message started out bad because apparently she tried to contact me and I hadn't responded. So her message was, I don't know if this is still your number. I really hope it is. Just let me know or I'll stop trying. And I'm like, oh no. And I didn't mean to. It just happens to be she's one of those friends that are in the periphery. I like her. I love her to death. But I just, we don't hang out like that. And I have such a hard time even keeping up with the friends that I am close to. Literally, the people that I'm closest to, I probably see every couple of weeks, including you. I don't think we've hung out like that. We work, and I see you at least twice a week, but that doesn't mean we're hanging out. And we don't do that as much, especially since The Last of Us has stopped, right? So all of those things, and I'm like, okay, I really do want to hang out, but that takes a whole day, and then all these things. So the best thing I could do is second week of June. Radio silence. And I felt so bad because it sounded so snobby, but I'm like, no, but this is the only way I can do this. And I have to be honest without putting it aside and trying to push it back and just be nonchalant about it. I'm going to give you a very direct answer. I'm so sorry.
Well, see, that in our last happy hour about Sex and the City, about the double booking, Like a lot of times I get in trouble with that, not with like dating,
Yeah.
but with hanging out with friends.
Right.
So I feel like you were doing like a very responsible thing. I do get, the other side of like middle of June, but I'm in the same boat as you. So after you told me this and you told me how guilty you felt, and I was kind of like, it happened to me. So I had recently gone through this other podcast, Savor. I'd gone to Vegas, and then I came back and I did Mother's Day, and these are all great things. But I was very like overwhelmed and stressed and tired. And we have this audiobook coming up. I'm working on this 13 Days of Halloween. Look, I'm doing the thing I'm about to... Okay. So I had a good friend of mine who's been on the show, Katie, like really good friends. And Marissa asked me to hang out the week I got back from Vegas. And originally I was like, I think so. Like it's going to depend on work. And then it sort of became a thing where I was like anxious about it because I was like, I really should say no. Like, I really should say no. I am stressed. I have all this stuff to do. I should say no. But as you also know, I've been struggling with like, I don't like the idea of always putting work first, which is something I do a lot. But anyway, I always give myself like, once this date comes, I'll be done with this.
Right.
Once this comes, I'll be done with this. And then it never ends. But so they were kind of like trying to just nail down, hey, like, what are we doing? Are we hanging out with you? Are we hanging out? What are we doing? And I sent kind of like a text message version of a meltdown where I just did what I just did. I did via text where I was like, I have to do this and I have to do this. And I also have to do this. And on top of that, I have this. And, they're my friends. And they were very much like, okay, that's a lot. And then I felt bad. I felt so guilty. And I was like, I'm sorry. I know, like, I'm complaining about going to Vegas. And they were like, no, don't worry about it. And I like gave all these excuses of like, I'm so sorry. I just feel bad. I feel bad. And it actually brought me to tears. I cried.
Oh, no.
And that's what I was like, all I did was kind of, maybe sloppily, but express a boundary.
With a lot of guilt and sorries.
Yes. And it just made me think because it has been a struggle. It has been a struggle for me throughout this whole pandemic, like throughout my whole life. But like in the pandemic, that was sort of the thing. I was like, well, I'm not going out anymore. Shouldn't this not be a problem anymore? And clearly, like it's still there. And so this was like an instance of me trying to do it, and I felt so bad that I cried afterwards.
I get to the point that I'm very stressed out. And in the end, I would rather spend quality time instead of time that I'm freaking out trying to plan my next move and trying to get past it. Like literally just checking it off instead of spending quality time. And if I'm stressed, if I'm thinking about the next moves, if I've double booked or if I'm trying to get onto the next thing, I'm not spending quality time. And it does. It kind of comes down to a breakdown. You're like, this is not worth it. Is. I want to see you. But I don't feel like I'm actually seeing you. Right.
And, that's something we've talked about before. Situations can vary, certainly. But a lot of times people, at least what the things I'm thinking of, they were fine with me being like, I can't do it right now. Like, they were not, I hope, unless they're like seething secretly, like not like, oh, this girl.
Talking about you behind your back.
Yeah. I mean... And it can sound, the thing also is though, I think it's hard for me to express our schedules are not always predictable in our job. So it's like, I can't tell you for sure.
Right.
Like maybe that day will be fine, but I'm not sure.
Right.
Which is not a great answer. Like I get that. But also sometimes, especially on like days where we've been recording all day, I can't just go from that to hanging out.
Right.
I need like at least an hour
to
to kind of calm down from it. Like I said, I get nervous doing this still. It's still kind of a thing that it's like my brain switches into a different mode. So I don't want to like leave that and go right away to hanging out.
Right. I thought about this the other day because we do work from home. It doesn't look like we're working that hard. I think
Right.
like, because I'm literally just in my guest room office all day long, and I'm kind of piddling about and listening to music, but still working. And then when I'm done, I leave it. But it looks like that I'm just doing the same thing again. So I feel guilty that I'm not doing something else, even though I'm like, no, but I have worked. I've been working.
Right.
It's been work. Even though I'm sitting at the computer and I'm not left my house, and yes, I'm still in pajamas. Maybe I haven't brushed my hair. I have been working, and it feels like a whole different tone of trying to show that that day may have been hard, even though what it seems like on paper is we're staring at each other through a webcam recording. Like that's what, you know what I mean? Right. So it's a whole different conversation. And then when we come with like the anxiety of the performances that we have to have, because essentially speaking and being published is a performance in itself, that gives me a lot of anxiety. Having this book coming out gives me a lot of anxiety. Talking about trying to produce and read off a book that you wrote in front of people you've never met in a studio you've never been to makes me anxious. And even though it's a couple of weeks away, I'm freaking out. Like that, all that stuff. And so coming into company, if you don't understand what I'm saying, this is, you're going to be like, why are you here then?
Right. I mean, that's true. That's true. It's such an interesting like juxtaposition as well of like, we've talked about this before, where I want to be invited to things. And when people tell me they went to things and I'm like, oh, but also I probably wouldn't have been good company. Probably didn't want to go.
I get the comment more so than any time is more like, oh, I didn't actually think you would come. Like the surprise is that I actually showed up.
Right. Samantha. Yeah. And I think that's part of it too, of trying to, because we do kind of mostly work from home on our laptops, on whatever device, in PJs. And I feel like I, at least, have part of this is my own doing, because I have said a true statement, which is I'm pretty flexible, because we're lucky that our jobs in a lot of ways is pretty flexible. And that I feel like I have let get out of hand. Like they are flexible, but I do have like work to do. And I think that, I guess what I'm saying is this is not, because I read a lot of articles about boundaries for this episode, and a lot of it was like people not listening to your boundaries, which is sometimes what is happening. But a lot of times it's me that has partly been like, hey, no, I can hang out. When I'm in a good mood, I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. And then like later, several hours later, I'm like, why did you say that?
Right. The quick change. Like, how do I get out of this now?
And then I feel too guilty to get out of it. Which again, a lot of people don't care. They really don't care.
Right. I mean, if it's constant, they do care. But if it's like they know what you're going through, for sure. Yeah, I think that's the big conversation is, I've gotten to the place, and maybe it's because I'm getting into my mid-40s and I'm like, I don't care anymore, that I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to say no. Or I'm just not going to say anything until the last minute so I don't have to commit to you. And that's why, and I don't feel bad about it, because I'm like, I'm just going to stay home. Unless it's like, I will never say no to someone in crisis. I will never, even if it like feels heavy and I'm like, I don't want to deal with this today, I will never say no. But if it's not a crisis and we're just hanging out, and even though I do want to hang out with you, if that means extra effort that I don't want to put in, I'm probably going to say no and be okay with it.
Yeah, which is good. I think that's a good place to be. You're also really good at like, well, they would show up for me, I'll show up for them. Yeah, you're good at that too.
That I feel like we have to support. Like it's a give and take. I'm very dependable in that way. If you've been there, I'll be there.
Yeah. Well, noted.
Thank you.
Yes. I guess this was the first time I felt guilt before, but like I've made strides, but clearly it's difficult.
Right.
It's difficult. And I did find some quotes about it. So here's one. For many people, guilt is a default emotion. No matter what you do or what you say, you'll be faced with guilt about the way you handled a situation. And that isn't fair or accurate. Borelli said to combat the guilt you may feel after setting boundaries, figure out if you're someone whose default is feeling guilty after tough situations, which I think is a good point. Like if so much of this is kind of internal of like, maybe someone isn't making you feel guilty. Maybe they are, but maybe they're not. And you just feel guilty. That's something to examine. Something else. So this is heavily related to our people pleasers episode that we did. So here's another quote. Boundary setting is going to be particularly tough for those who are people pleasers or if your self-worth tends to come from meeting the needs of other people. And I think that is something that I have. Yes. Yes. And the quote goes on, for people who fall into this category, it may be hard not to think in extremes, which could include, is this person still going to want to be friends with me after I set a boundary? Borelli added. And this could even bring up concerns like maybe the relationship only works because I elevate someone else's needs all the time, she said. And in the case of boundaries, you're doing the opposite of prioritizing someone else's needs. You're making your needs the priority and leaving a loved one's needs unmet. So I feel like for me, this is definitely, and we've talked about this too, of like, oh, they'll never hang out with me again if I say no. Like, what will I do? But also a lot of the conversations we've had around women and selflessness and entertaining and putting other people first and all of those things. I know in like when we did our therapy episodes, I talked about it in there where I was like, I feel like I'm performing and I just need to make everyone else happy. And so it's always putting other people first. But then like when you set a boundary and quote, put yourself first, it feels wrong. It feels bad. Just because that's how I've been conditioned, at least. It feels like selfish to do it. Yeah. I also found another article about it saying it's sort of a matter of safety thing of like you feel like you can't say no when people ask you to do things. Or in the inverse of like you have to say no because you're afraid of what will happen. If you do say yes, which is what I've kind of been talking about with dating, which is why I always felt like I shouldn't date because I won't be able to say no to anything. But on the like friendship side of like the hanging out side, I've always felt like I have to say yes to everything. And then they also brought up the point women afraid, rightfully, I would say, of being called a bitch. Of, you set up your boundaries and they're like, no, you bitch.
Well, we talked about this in that religious trauma episode. Women, like the constant command to women is to be selfless. And I feel like this is where we've really gone wrong. Because anything outside of that is selfish. There's no in between. And I think that's growing up religiously. That's what I believe too. Like I have to give everything of myself to be grateful and to show that I am grateful and that I am a godly woman by never saying no. And it kind of was expected to that in that marriages and sex in itself, that women can't say no to their husband. Like it goes a long way. And I think with trauma added to that, absolutely. All of that is like, how can we say no if someone needs something? And if we say no, that means we're being selfish, uncaring, and unkind. Right.
Maybe we'll go to hell.
Every time.
Every time. Yeah. So I feel like this was definitely some steps forward, but also, more introspection.
Yes.
Again, my friends did not make me feel guilty. I just want to be clear about that. It was just me.
Right.
So it's something else to think about. But I did want to bring it up. I did want to revisit it. The articles I was quoting from was one, a HuffPost article called Setting Boundaries Without Guilt. And then a Medium article, Is Guilt Holding You Back from Setting Boundaries? Guilt resiliency is the answer, which I didn't really get into, but they were talking about like how just to become real resilient to guilt. Yeah. So hopefully to those listening, you are working on those boundaries. You've got good boundaries. You're taking time off when you can, when you want to. But yeah, if you have any thoughts about this, please let us know. You can email us at stephaniamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at Momstuff Podcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff Mom Never Told You. You can also find us on YouTube. And yes, we do have a book coming out. You can pre-order it at stuffyoushouldreadbooks.com. Thanks, as always, to our super producer, Christina, our executive producer, Maya, and our contributor, Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite shows.